Hello, cellists. Excellent. I'm seeing again some familiar and some new faces, which is wonderful. If you weren't able to make yesterday's workshop, it would be great if you could just maybe make a note of where you're located. It's always fun to hear about all the different places that people are zooming in from. So if you weren't here yesterday, if you would like to take a moment to write in the chat box below where you are located, that would be really fun to hear. I hope that you're all doing well. I hope that yesterday made sense. I'm just going to move my camera down a little bit. Hopefully you've also all received the recording from yesterday. And those of you that asked for it also, I did send out quite a few of those annotated scores, so happy to send those to others as well. If you would like them, please feel free to let me know. So today is going to be, as mentioned, a kind of combination of me talking through the cello part, trying to explain a little bit about how I make expressive decisions about how I'm going to shape this music in terms of expressive colours, in terms of choices of slides, in terms of how I shape ornaments, things like that. And then also the second part is going to be focused on vibrato, continuing on from yesterday, and in particular looking at developing a continuous vibrato. And then at the end of our hour, I'll also be available for another half an hour in case anybody would like to ask me any questions. So let's see, let's go. So hopefully you all have in front of you the score that I sent out, which has, this one's a bit more extra annotated for me, but this one with my bowings and fingerings in red. Again, if you are so inclined, it's always nice to see faces. If there's a reason you don't want to do that, that's fine too. But if you do want to do it and you're not sure how to, there's a camera on the, if you drag the cursor over the Zoom screen, bottom left, there's a camera. And if you click that once, you will turn your camera on. Brilliant. Yes, love seeing faces. Thanks, guys. Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, Teresa. And Kimberly from Switzerland could join us today. Wonderful. Hi, Kimberly. Okay, so I thought maybe what I could do is start off by just choosing a few bars, playing them once through, and then kind of unpacking it afterwards. So I thought, first of all, looking at that score, we would start with the opening all the way through to the downbeat of bar 9. And I'm going to attempt to sing the piano part when I have the cello accompaniment. So may not go completely right, but we'll have a go. So I should also mention that obviously on Zoom, the cello sound is not ideal. It's good enough, but for the purposes of teaching online and the online cello lab that I lead, we actually do a lot of pre-recorded work. So that's an opportunity to really get familiar with how extremely useful it can be to record oneself, look back, be one's own best critic, get feedback from me, get feedback from others. So right now I'm obviously playing live. The sound won't be the same as if you were in the room, but I'm guessing you probably are all familiar with that in any case. So here we go. Bar 1 through to the downbeat of bar 9. So let's go back to the beginning and talk that through a little bit. One thing that I think is really striking about this movement is the way it begins with both parts starting from the downbeat. So there's no nice little piano introduction and then, oh, okay, I'm in the mood, here I go, let's go. None of that. It's just, okay, go. Which is impactful, it's beautiful. But it means that we have to have the character that we want to start this piece in very clearly in our mind before we start. And I think that means having the concept of the kind of vibrato you want to use and really practicing how you're going to start that first note. Loads and loads and loads and loads and loads, because it's so important. What I like to do is actually have a feeling of both hands starting together. So I don't kind of like have the vibrato going and then join. I more really like to have the hands as coordinated as possible at the same time. That said, I do tend to drop my left hand third finger, which is what I choose to play this opening D with, just before I start with the bow. So I'll typically have my first finger on the C, and then I'll lift the bow, and then just before I put the bow down, I'll put the third finger down. So, and down, and the bow goes down. So left hand bow. So it's very small, but that kind of makes me feel more like the hands are working together. And then the bow needs to connect immediately with the string. And that, I think, there's a few ways that you can do that. It's the opening of a piece, so we need to start with a present sound. Even though it's piano, it needs to still be present. And I think one way of doing that is to feel a little bit like you're leaning towards the bridge. So if you just have a slight, if you sort of think, oh, it's piano, I'm going to play here, you know, God forbid you might be a little bit nervous as well, and it's going to be super, super shaky. Okay, so we don't want that. It doesn't sound present. It needs to be a proper, yes, I'm here and this is my love song kind of sound. So if you start a little bit closer contact point wise to the bridge, that can help. I also talk a lot about, in my teaching, sometimes I call it the silent wiggle, and it's basically this idea of connecting with the string. In other words, putting the bow on the string before you start, feeling that you've got this very strong downwards and horizontal connection with it, meaning that you can kind of wiggle the string, do that silent wiggle without making a sound, and then let the bow go, and it gives much more clarity to the beginning of the note. This is a great way of getting really, really great articulation for the beginning of any note, whether it's, you know, the beginning of the Dvorak cello concerto or something which is more intimate, like this, where you obviously don't do it quite so much, but you can still just get that tiny ta instead of ah, right? You want to have like a consonant edge ta to the beginning of the note, so it kind of pops. So that silent wiggle is a good way to do that. And it's very, very small because this is an intimate and you know, tender piece. So now there's an opportunity for an expressive slide, and for the purposes of this piece, most of these expressive slides happen within the same bow. So they don't happen like in the Swan, they don't happen on a new bow. So there I was sliding on a new bow. But for the purposes of this piece, this Largo, these slides tend to happen in the same bow stroke. So therefore, our options when you're sliding, when you're shifting in the same bow, are primarily, are you going to slide under the note or over the note? And under the note would mean that you slide on the new finger. So in the cases of this C to G, right, where we have the C to the G, we could slide under it by sliding on the G, that's the new note, but that's the note that we're sliding to. And that would be a sliding on the fourth finger. That would be under. Or we can slide on the old finger, meaning the first finger, and then we get. So does that make sense? The idea of like the old finger, the fourth finger, being under, and the new finger, first finger being, sorry, other way around. The new finger means under, the old finger, first finger, means over. Would you like me to talk that through one more time, or do you feel like that makes sense? Linda, yes. Oh, Linda, could you just unmute yourself? Sorry.
It sort of made sense. But what I didn't understand is we are not sliding on the C, the second finger, to G. We're sliding on the B to G. Is that what you're saying, as the old finger?
So it's a C to a G.
The C, which is your second finger to the fourth.
You could use a second finger if you want. In the fingering that I suggested, we would start with a 3, and that would mean that the C would be first finger.
It's really good.
Okay.
Right, I get it. Yeah, I see
think
it.
I'm set. Thank you.
Cool.
How do you ask for the check in French? L'addition? L'addition. Okay. Italian il conto, and of course in English the check.
Or are we?
Thank you, merci.
To us. We're suddenly breaking into French. I mean, Frédéric Chopin.
Okay.
French, but...
Yeah, because I'll by phone, pay by phone.
Okay, well, there we go. Now we all know how to ask for the check in French. L'addition. Always good to know. This is actually a free class, but let me mute all. There we go. Mute all. Okay. So funny. That will be enjoyed on the recording by Kimberly, I'm sure. Okay, so again, we could go old, new. The new finger 4 would be under, and the old finger 1 would be over. So I'm not sure if you noticed, I chose to do the over version. I think it's, for me, I prefer it, but it's very subjective. It's very, very personal. So again. The first of many little ornamented turn figures. And I think the most important thing with these turn figures, these little ornamented figures, is to not make them sound incidental or kind of functional. Right? They shouldn't sound boring. They shouldn't sound like somebody's just going da 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 da. They should sound melodic. They should sound like they're part of the melody. So we might want to bring out the top note of the turn a little bit more. Da, ya, da, 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 da. And if you do that, if you bring out that C, da, ya, da, 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 it also leads itself more naturally to the D that we're arriving on, which just creates this feeling of stepwise melody. Da, ya, da, da, ya, da, 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 da. So looking for that stepwise connection is always a good thing to do, and thinking about these turns as being as melodic as possible is always a good thing to do. So I also had another shift there. For that one I chose to go under, so I was shifting on the third finger. Right, I was going to 2 and then putting my third finger and shifting to the 3. If I shifted on the 2, it would sound like that. But I chose to... And that's in common with kind of the older style of cellists. I think both Jean Dron that we heard yesterday, Pianigovsky also play with that. That kind of like little lilt there. I think it's pretty lovely. And then we have the accompaniment. We switch to the accompaniment. The piano has the melody, and we are pianissimo. So we because of the range, because we're so low, we're going to be kind of softer anyway. So we don't need to overly exaggerate it being soft, but it still is written pianissimo. So we kind of have to find the sweet spot there of how loud to play while still being supportive of the piano part. We go straight back to solo mode, so more intense connection with the string on the A string. There I was doing an under slide. That means I slide on the new finger, the 4. So I deliberately made it different from the first opening measure where I went over. Second time. Under, just to create variety. It's always nice to create variety, and twice the same just can start to sound less in the moment. So it's always important to let the dotted 8th note die a little bit. Let it die and then clear. Before you play the ta-ta, the little 16th, we need to re-drop the weight into the string before we play it. Otherwise it's not going to sound clear. So we drop the weight in and then we're going to go to accompaniment. Really important with that bar 7 downbeat G that we don't play it too loudly. It's a note that will very easily sound big because it's on a very resonant string. It's high, and so we have to really be careful to downplay it and switch to our accompaniment roll there. For that, I find it helpful to turn the bow a little bit to partial hair, meaning away from the bridge. When you so instead of having not the contact point so much as the actual hair itself being turned away from the bridge, instead of full hair, which of course when there's more hair you get more sound. When there's less hair you're going to get a more floaty sound, especially when the bow's not moving too fast. So from slightly flatter hair at the end of bar 6, I change to a partial hair. I also use a fast vibrato to kind of create that sort of slightly more ethereal sound. And then as I move to the lower strings, I can use a slightly flatter hair and be a little bit fuller with the sound to support the piano. Then so that's the first where I played up to before, up to the downbeat of bar 9. The next section I'm going to play is continuing on from there, bar 9, to the end of bar 17. How are we doing here? Okay, yeah, I'm going to keep going for now. So this is to the end of bar 17. It's worth kind of trying to develop that, and it really doesn't matter if you can't sing, if you don't feel like you have a particularly melodic voice. It really doesn't matter. It's more about just going through the motions of trying to get familiar with the piano part and seeing how the two parts fit together. And it can be really fun to have just a even just a little bit of a sense of that as you play. It makes more sense of the harmony and what's going on and how big you should be. All these things start to fall into place, I find. So going back to bar 9, if you remember just before that, the piano part had the and then the cello part, same idea. I have a slide here. I slide over, meaning I slide on the second finger. If I did it the other way, if I slid on the 4th, I would put the 4th down on the A string. And of course, with these things, when you slow them down, they start to sound pretty distasteful and like slurpy, and you're like, that's way too much. But when you can do any of these slides tastefully, it's just a question of the right amount. So you have to kind of figure out, okay, how can I do it under if that's what I like, tastefully, or the way that I did it before, over. So there's always ways to do it, and it's worth experimenting with. I think that's one of the details that we can do that really starts to make the piece your own, whether you want to choose under or over slides. And then back to the accompaniment. Again, not too soft. Crescendoing for this dramatic bass line, especially the C sharp half step. That's really important. And then we come to this beautiful line that is, I think, the most tentative in the piece. It's like, if you're going to have some air in the sound, if you're going to have some sense of wandering and not being quite sure where you are, this is it. This is the kind of no man's land. So I use a very light, fast bow, fairly fast, not that fast. I can do a retake here sometimes, so I do retake. See how I'm like pulling the bow back for the last C. It brings out that 8th note a little bit more. And then changing to the A string, different sound. Crescendoing to the C sharp. And then making the sharp. I would really, really suggest not breaking the bow between the C sharp and the E flat. In Chopin's original score, this is in bar 14, he does it all in one bow. And it really creates this lovely connection between the C sharp to the E flat, this sort of like still dissonant but also moving to a resolution feeling. If you break it there, I think you lose something of that. So I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to break it to down bow. If I break it, it's going to be. If I don't break it. Gorgeous love declaration. This is in A flat major and big forte. So when you play forte in bar 16 on the C string, this is generally when you play on the lower strings, we need less bow. On the higher strings, you need more bow, a lighter bow. On the lower strings, you need less bow and a bit of a heavier bow. It's all relative, but that's the sort of general rule of the physics of the instrument. And so we don't have to, think, okay, it's forte, so I'm going to use a whole bow. Actually, that's going to take away from the richness of the sound. Instead, if we maybe start maybe just at the 2/3 point of the bow, kind of a third away from the point, something like that, and give ourselves enough time to make enough bow here to do a comfortable bow change to the up bow. And I'm fairly close to the bridge. You can also, when you're on these lower strings, use a wider vibrato. And with the vibrato, vibrato, I always have to remind myself this because it makes such a difference when you just like give your left hand freedom, give it like permission to be emancipated. Okay, and when we practice, we can't always do that, but when we play, when we perform, it's so important to have this freedom in this hand. So as I find that really helpful. So just keeping this hand free. Also, it just becomes more personal. Careful not to diminuendo too much, or even arguably at all there, because there's no diminuendo marked. And then we suddenly go to piano. So it's huge change, bar 18, piano. This is the beginning of our last really long line that we talked about yesterday, that really long phrase. And it's the beginning, it starts with a sequence. So here's bar 18 to the end. Ideally I'd have a bit more bow at the end, but so it's such beautiful writing, and I think it's kind of nice to because it's such a long phrase, it does make sense to keep it on the D string for quite a while. So you can see we're only moving to the A string at the end of bar 19, and that just kind of helps to create this longer line. You have the D string colour for a bit longer, and then you save it to the end of bar 19 to move to the A. I think we want to start with a fairly present sound. You know, when we did that in bar 12, we were a little bit more tentative. But here, I think you can get a more present sound if you use actually a little bit less bow, so slightly slower bow can help. Not. But more like kind of, I mean business, or you know, it's a serious thing. Here we go. So stay on the D string. Crescendo, but still on the D string, A string here. A little bit more bow. Take time. But not too much. And then from bar 21 all the way to bar 23, it's marked forte, and even I think it says in the original part sostenuto. I need to check that. I should add that there because that's really important. It's this idea of a sustained forte, and I think it's very easy, especially because there's, you know, the texture changes if you remember in the piano there to those offbeat quarter notes in bar 22. Da, piano, piano. It's really easy to A, lose tempo and get slower there, and it's also really easy to be like, oh, this is kind of awkward to sustain the sound, so I'm just gonna play a bit softer and gradually do a diminuendo until I get to bar 24 where it says piano, but actually there isn't any diminuendo mark there. So I think as much as we can, it's good to sustain it. And in particular, be careful at the end of bar 21 to keep that kind of, you know, we're coming to the frog, so we don't want to squish the sound there. We can't be too heavy, but we need it to be present, and then this needs to be strong. And you can really show your feeling and sort of connection with the piano there by, I don't know if you can see it, but I have a piano there in case you're like, why is she doing that? There's a piano there. So you can show your connection to the piano by kind of deepening the bow weight in those offbeats when the piano has their part. So we kind of use less vibrato. And when the piano plays, at that point, that's kind of the release. When the piano plays, you get to release, and that means the vibrato starts. So we have no vibrato, da, piano, no vibrato, piano. And then this sixth, I think it's really nice to do a mini diminuendo there, even though it's not written, but hopefully Chopin will forgive us. But then come back if you can towards sound. So you can show forte to piano here, and then here less vibrato. I choose to do. I'm not using very fast bow either. And then to make the pianissimo, I use a very tight vibrato or small vibrato and quite a slightly faster bow to show a different colour there. It's nice to slightly lift the bow between those two Gs. And back to less vibrato, but a kind of depth in the sound. That's serious. And remember that those same three notes were the notes that we played in bar 22, and the piano also has them later. But here we are not going to the D, da 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 ya. We're going to go da 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 ta ya to our B flat. So finally, that F G, F gets to resolve. We're not in a hurry. You can really take your time, and then maybe let the vibrato come a little bit later. And that's just one way through. So of course there's so many different ways that we can do it, but I thought maybe it would be interesting to have an insight into how I'm currently feeling about this piece and what I do. And so it's like something solid, and you can always divert from that, change, make so many different interpretive decisions, but there are some thoughts. Before we jump into vibrato, are there any questions about any of the things that we've talked about so far?
Yeah.
Yes, Owen.
I was just I had like, I think, where was it? Yeah. So like when like you have like the half notes at like bar 22.
Yeah.
Should you like sort of do like, is it sort of like kind of like a bite, or more just like sort of very like smooth like?
Yeah, that's a good question. Careful that you've got your sound for musicians on.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's a really good question. There's not a. You could do it either way. But I think that I feel it more, and I think you're feeling it more too, probably, as smoother, right? So not too much of an edge there. More ta ya ya. It doesn't have to be.
Oh yeah.
Ta ta ta. Right? It's more like ya boom, and then the piano gives that kind of dryness. Because remember how this part also, where the piano has the no pedal and has those offbeat quarter notes. So the piano is very dry, and the cello's job is to kind of make it more sticky and gluey. So maybe that's actually the best answer to your question, that we need to be sticky and gluey, and so probably not too much edge to the sound.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean you can't kind of, you still need to start with proper contact, but.
Oh wait, is that sort of like, so like kind of like this, like.
Your original sound for musicians is still not on. That's okay.
Sorry, I'm not sure where to find it exactly. I can try to.
No worries. It's okay. We can do a separate tech chat about that. But we can talk about that. Owen's actually a regular student of mine, so we can talk about that later as well. Okay, Owen. But I appreciate the question, and we can look at that in your next lesson. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Great. Jonathan.
Hi. I had a quick question. Sorry if you already covered this at the end of bar 21. Sorry, I'm looking this way because my screen is to my left. How do you recommend shifting to that grace note on C? That really quick grace note.
Yeah. So I would just lift the fourth finger quite high, and yeah, it's a really good question too. If you kind of coordinate the left hand fourth finger and the bow together. So actually, what I'm doing, I think, is making the C a little bit more pronounced. Ta ta da.
So you're shifting to the A before that. I think that was my. You know what I was doing is I was staying where I was on the G, and then I played the A finger 3, and then I shifted for the grace note. That's why it was sounding wonky.
Yeah. Have a look at the version that I sent with those fingerings, because you might find that in that bar you may find that solves that problem.
Oh yeah, I see yours too. I'm just wasn't thinking.
That's all right. No. It's a good question. And anyway, I think that the coordinating the two hands together and being aware of making the higher grace note a little bit more is a really important thing to talk about with ornamentation. So you also brought up that topic. Mette.
Yes, I was wondering.
Good to see you.
Hello. I know it's in 3 halves. I don't know how to say it in English. But I count in eighths. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that horrible?
No, I think so, you're talking about just in general from the beginning of the piece in terms of really figuring out the rhythm.
Yeah, just for speed and
in eighths.
Yeah,
No, I think
yes.
that's a great idea. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that's a great
Exactly.
idea.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Then I'll continue.
Yeah, I mean, any kind of rhythmic issues that one encounters, subdividing is pretty much the best answer for it.
Exactly.
And subdividing at the smallest note value that's present in the phrase that you're working on. So
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
Linda,
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Sophie, when we move to A major,
Yes.
we start with
Do you mean
half notes going on.
A flat major?
A flat major, yeah, sorry.
Yes.
In bar 16.
Yes.
And we're playing a lot on the C string.
Yes.
When we're in those deep things, are we doing any glissando coming down from those higher notes when we're going, or is that like a clear, like I thought you did it once and then the second time you went very cleanly.
Yeah, well observed. I think that's what I was kind of trying to do. I think, to be honest, it's kind of in the fingering that I've suggested those slides. So, because we're talking about bar 16 here.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so, because it's 2 to 1 was the fingering that I did. So,
yeah, there.
Yeah, and I kind of slide down more on the 2 and then release at the last minute for the 1.
So there is there's a glissando there in a
yes.
little glissando.
Yes.
We don't call it that.
We can call it a soupy slide. We can actually call it whatever we want. So.
A soupy slide. I like that. Okay, a little soupy slide there.
I give myself permission to do that there. So yeah,
I think it's beautiful that way. Frankly, you did it
like
both
it.
ways. You did it the other time. You did it cleanly, and I thought, yeah, I like the other way.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, and it's good to, ring the changes as well. Experiment and see what you like. So, great. And then I saw before that iPhone. Oh no, that was Mete. Okay, brilliant. So I think we've answered those questions. Great. So let's go on to some vibrato work. And we have already we've talked about how in the essence, this piece really, really does benefit from having a good vibrato. And in essence, vibrato comes down to this shifting motion combined with a rolling forearm motion. And so those two kind of liberating motions are good to just practice on their own, as we did yesterday. And then moving on from that, a couple of general important things to think about with vibrato. One is that vibrato is, we mentioned, it's such a personal tool. Another is that it's a tool for projection. So if you want to make your sound carry a little bit more, just like an opera singer carrying a big hall will use vibrato, we can use vibrato. So for example, if I play that A flat again that we just were talking about, without vibrato, and then I do it again with vibrato, it just sounds bigger, it sounds broader. So we always have that option. Another thing that's important about vibrato is that generally on the lower pitches, you want to use a wider vibrato, a slower vibrato. For the higher pitches, generally we want to use a slightly faster vibrato and a narrower vibrato. So if I took that A flat, wider, slower vibrato on the C string and did exactly the same on the A string, suddenly it sounds like a slightly out of control soprano, right? Which we probably don't want. But if we make it a little bit faster and a little bit narrower, it kind of makes sense with the higher pitches. And that's generally true across the range of the cello, lower to higher pitches. So again, slower, wider for the lower pitches, and a little faster and narrower for the higher pitches. Another thing that I always love to say and remind myself about with vibrato is that less is more. So vibrato is a great tool to have, but if it's used too much, it kind of can become like, too much makeup. I'm sure you've heard other analogies. I need to think of a kind of gender neutral one because I'm not loving that one actually, but anyway, you get the point. So less is more. If we even in the let me take this phrase. I can play with almost no vibrato, and then I could just use a hint of it. I can add a little bit of vibrato, less vibrato, add the vibrato, more vibrato. So there's vibrato, like any tool, should be varied, and there's a lot of the time we can do a lot of expression without any. In fact, it's better to do it without. Less is more. Ultimately, so much of the expression comes from the bow. The two hands need to work together, and it's a really great experiment to force yourself not to use vibrato, especially if you're somebody who already has a vibrato that you use a lot. It's really great to challenge yourself. Can you actually play your favorite piece without any vibrato? And it tends to be really, really hard to do. But when we force ourselves to do that, it encourages us to find the expression that we're looking for in the bow. And that's gold to do. You can always add the vibrato back afterwards. So a couple of general thoughts about vibrato. Let's have a quick look at the developing continuous vibrato exercise that I sent out. So that's the one that that looks like that. And you know, continuous vibrato is really just this idea of getting this rocking, shifting motion going and not stopping it between notes. So this vibrato exercise, we're looking not at the finger substitution one at the top with the whole notes, but the next one, the big exercise where it says FB, FB, forward, backwards. And this, we're not going to have time to play Janos Starker's video where he talks about this idea of the top of the note, the oscillation being the center of the pitch. But I highly recommend checking that out. You know what? I'm going to send you an email with a link to it because you might find it helpful. But anyway, the idea is that this motion is forward-backward motion is with the finger going from a kind of perpendicular to the string angle to a slightly backward angle where the finger points a little bit towards the bridge. So where it says forward, we're kind of more in that perpendicular space, you know, finger really at right angles to the fingerboard. So we go forward, back. And what I would do is put the metronome on at 60, which I'm gonna do. So here's my metronome at 60. And I've chosen a ringing pitch, which is the D on the A string. I'm going to play it starting with second finger. Second finger is in the middle of the hand, so the hand goes back and forth. It pivots more easily on these second and third fingers. So I'm starting on 2, and I'm going to divide the bow into 4 of these beats. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to divide it into these forward, back, eighth note kind of subdivisions, and I'm going to do 4 of them. So like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Yesterday we talked a little bit about having the elbow in one space, not moving around when we do this. We also talked about the wrist being flat. So we talked about the thumb being free. That's really, 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 really important in all vibrato. My thumb is touching the back of the neck for this exercise, but very lightly. So here it is again. Forward, back, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. And then do the whole line. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Are there any questions about that so far? Okay, so then I would just keep going, and the next line with the triplets is the trickiest one, I would say, to do. So this is because with the beats, the 1, 2, 3, 4, are going to mean that we have alternating forward and backward beats, because we've got 3 per beat. So it's going to be forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, forward. It's going to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, or forward, backward, backward, forward, backward. So that's in many ways the trickiest one actually to do, and it normally takes a while to get there. So please don't feel disheartened if you're like, oh my gosh, I can't do the second line. Actually, you'll probably find the third line quite a bit easier than the second line if that's you. So with any, whenever you're developing anything to do with cello, I think slow quality practice is always the best answer, and we all have to remind ourselves of that all the time. But the idea, going back to my metronome, is that we gradually build it faster. So we start with the 8th notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and you can see this slight rocking motion in my forearm. And then when you feel like you're ready, you can do it for a long time, you can do the 3s. So I'm going from perpendicular to slightly pointing my finger towards the bridge. Then I'm going to go to groups of 4, 1 and 2 and 2, 3 and a 4, E and a 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, to 6 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the idea is that you end up with a free and pretty fast vibrato. And again, I've been playing all my life, and it takes a long time to work on this. So what's most important is that you're making the correct motion and doing it really, really slowly and accurately, and looking for that freedom, that you never feel stuck. If you ever get stuck, one of the best answers is to stop and read a book, go for a walk, pat your dog, whatever works, do some yoga, Zen, something. And then come back with a fresh, and you'll be surprised at how things reset. And small increments of practice as well, I think is really helpful. If you have a little bit of flexibility in the way you can practice, doing small sessions can be really, really helpful. So when you've done a little bit of the second finger, of course, you then do exactly the same with the third finger. Third finger, because it's also a central finger to the hand. Then I find, oh, interesting, I actually put 1 here. I put 2, 1, 3, 4. Not quite sure why I did that. I would say 2, 3, 1, 4. So, sorry about that, guys, it should be 2, 3, 1, 4. So, and then 3. In terms of ease, it doesn't really matter. You could do 1 as well. But anyway, then I would do 1. And then 4 at the end. When I do 4 is the hardest, and you support your 4th finger with the 3rd finger. So put the 3rd finger down with the 4th finger. And so on. Any questions about any of that? So I feel like I'm loading you with information. Hopefully it's making sense. Aisling.
Oh, hi. Sorry, I meant to put my pen up. Sorry, when you were saying 4, which bar was that? I got a bit lost.
When I was saying what? Sorry.
Which bar were you talking about?
Which bar? Do you mean in terms of the Chopin?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, this is just a separate vibrato exercise.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought you were, because you were playing. Okay, right. Sorry,
Yeah.
because you.
No problem. Yeah. I mean, actually, that is the first note of the piece, so it could be, it works quite well. We could say it's the first note that you're working on. The other thing. Yeah. The other thing to do with the vibrato exercise is also to practice free vibrato. So you just take the same idea, and having done those careful exercises, you move to unmeasured vibrato. I know that there are some teachers who shy away from practicing vibrato in that kind of regimented way. This is one way of many, and it's the way that I personally find most helpful in terms of continuous vibrato. Because when we do continuous vibrato, say we're in 4th position, now obviously we're not going to actually play a passage like that, but you can see that my the way that I'm moving from one finger to the next is continuous, right? There's the motion that I'm getting going there. I'm trying to make as fluid as possible, and if I did it faster, that continuous vibrato. So it's a step-by-step process, but I find that exercise, when practiced well, can be very useful, even though it takes a lot of discipline to practice that one. I have given some other exercises as well on the other sheet. I did finger substitution on the same note. That's really good. So feel free to experiment with any of those. We talked a little bit yesterday about the Stephen Doane roll. The Stephen Doane roll. I would like to have a couple of minutes of your time, if you're willing, before we finish. We've got 4 minutes to tell you a little bit about my cello lab, in case anybody is interested in knowing about it or even being a part of it. So it is, just to give you a sense of what it entails, it's a chance to learn cello in a carefully structured and accountable learning environment alongside fellow cellists from around the world. I'm running it from September 2nd to December 8th this fall. Its focus is on improving practice strategies this time, and together we're going to be exploring 3 popular romantic cello works. Those are The Swan by Saint-Saëns, Fauré's À présent rêve, and Schumann's Traumerei, all ridiculously gorgeous pieces. It's a 14-week course. It will involve 3 masterclasses from world-class cellists. This fall we've got Uri Vardi, who is very much sought after pedagogue and cellist. He has recently retired from University of Wisconsin, professor there in Madison, and his focus is very much on self-awareness and Feldenkrais. So trying to identify ingrained habits, really everything to do with self-awareness. I am a huge fan of his teaching. We also have Yuri Leonovich, who is, besides being an amazing scholar and researcher, a wonderful cellist and teacher. He teaches his university of, Bob Jones University in Greenville, South Carolina is where he's at. And then also from University of Sao Paulo in Brazil, the wonderful Andre Micheletti, who is also a highly sought after cellist and teacher. And each of them bring individual things to the cello lab. The online class time for the lab is, time commitment is about 2.5 hours a week. Those 2.5 hours involve 2 1-hour group classes. One of these is a hands-on weekly workout where we go through concepts and exercises to develop our playing and cello fitness, kind of like in a gym together. And the other class is a weekly studio class where participants play works in progress to each other in a very friendly, encouraging lab environment, providing feedback and sharing personal insights with each other. And I also provide my own written feedback for these performances, so it's another way of me being able to comment on what you're doing, giving you that customized feedback. There's also a 1-hour individual lesson with me once a month. There's a 90-minute small group class once a month, and those small group classes, which have been extremely successful in the past, are on a topic that you can choose from a list of topics. Those topics are decided between you, the participants, and me based on individual interests and also what I think may benefit you most. So we create a list of topics and then you choose what you want to look at for those basically 3 months that we have during the course. Every week you also receive a 1-hour practice proposal from me based on the concepts and exercises that we've been looking at that week. Practice proposals are offered at 3 different levels, so you can choose which level makes most sense for you depending on your current playing level. There is a $100 discount offered to anyone who's registered for these Chopin workshops. So I personally find this a really rewarding and enjoyable way of teaching. And not just teaching but learning as well. I feel like I learned so much from these courses. I see as I look around that there are several people who have already taken part in these courses or who I already know in some capacity, so it's great to see you here. And I think Felipe looks like maybe you wanted to say something.
Hello. I couldn't connect yesterday, so I didn't introduce myself. I'm Felipe Estrada from Mexico. So there's also people from Mexico here. And I just wanted to tell you a couple of stories before we go. I was reading a long time ago about Johannes Moser when he was studying with David Geringas. And David Geringas asked him, now you gotta tell me who is your best teacher. And of course Johannes Moser answered, it's you, professor. And he said, no, your best teacher is yourself. And I think this is a great lesson for all of us. But I think also that Sophie, as well as maybe David Geringas, she's a great facilitator. Our own teacher, we are our own teachers. We can have wonderful facilitators as Sophie, as David Geringas, as Johannes Moser, as any people in the internet you can find, but you are your real teacher. And there was also a very interesting thing I saw about Michael Phelps, now that the Olympics finished. He was asked about the team, and he said that he was pretty disappointed about the team. And I just was wondering why. And I was watching that he just say, I swam every day. I did a great effort to be where I am. If I didn't go to the water one day, that would made me lose 2 days. So I would be every time backwards if I just fail one day. So I just wonder if these people from the young generation are willing to take these baby steps that made me get to where I am. It would be amazing to teach them. And I think that's something very important for us all to understand, that cello playing is about baby steps, about little goals, about getting there softly. And I think that the Cello Lab is an amazing opportunity to have Sophie, Dr. Sophie, as your guide, as your facilitator, and these wonderful masters that you would not see everywhere. Honestly, I have had the chance to play for some of these wonderful teachers. And in universities or college, you always have to fight for these places. You have to have an inner contest. And sometimes people from outside universities also come, and they choose 1, 2, or 3 people to play for these masters. And here you have the opportunity to play for them and learn from them. So this is just a wonderful opportunity in every sense for any people who is trying to improve their cello playing and who understands that their own teachers are themselves. There are a lot of tools that Sophie has developed that can help us, but we are the one who teach ourselves. So I see so many familiar faces. It's great to have you here, and some other people that I don't know, but it would be wonderful if we could share our knowledge together in this Cello Lab in number 2 edition. I hope to see you there. I will definitely be there. So.
Thank you, Felipe. Felipe took part in the first Cello Lab, which happened in the spring. So he was one of the guinea pigs. So it's nice to hear him feeling still good about it. And I see a couple. I don't know if anybody else that took part in one of them wants to say something. It's totally fine. Patricia, Pat.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi. I was in Cello Lab 1, and I would highly, highly recommend it to any of you. It was a fabulous course. I can hear the difference in my playing, and I mean, I've played since I was 8 years old, but this course has made the most difference in my playing. I think it was wonderful. If I weren't babysitting my granddaughters, I'd be taking this next one. But I highly recommend this incredible opportunity. It's a fabulous course. You'll learn so many tools about minute little things that will change the sound of your playing, and shifting, intonation, everything. It's very, very worthwhile. And the master classes are incredible.
Oh, thank you, Pat. That's really lovely to hear and Felipe too. Thank you. And it's so it's fun, and you make friends and we have a good time. So I realise that we're past time. That's very nice of you all to stay, and thank you for doing that. If you need to go, please do so. I completely understand. If you fancy hanging around a bit, I'm going to be here. Very happy to continue chatting about Cello Lab or generally cello if you have a question for a few minutes. So But thank you all for joining from all the different parts of the world. Yeah, Janet, hi.
Thank you. How does the schedule work? So what time or what day?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so basically the week before the lab starts, which is September 2nd, that's the official beginning of the first week. The week before it starts, the registration date finishes. I think it's August the 26th that is the close of the registration. And that day I send out a doodle availability poll to everybody, and based on everybody's collective availability, we'll pick the best 2 times for the 2 group classes. The other classes are scheduled much more easily because it's just one-on-one or the small group class. But so for those 2 group classes, it's a doodle availability poll. And what I've actually found, it was it was not problematic last time to find 2 times. What happened last time was that one of the times was at the weekend and the other time was a weekday. It doesn't have to be like that again, but I think the last time I think I found a time that worked for everybody but one person or possibly 2 people, and what I did was then liaise with those 2 people separately, and we figured out together a way to make it work so that actually there was very, very high participation throughout. I think we had maybe people missing classes in total. I mean, there were maybe like 5 absences, something like that, throughout the whole course, or 5 people individually once. So if for some reason there was a massive conflict with the particular participants of a lab, then there's also the option of doing one of the classes on a rotating schedule where you have 2 different times. It is anticipated that you may well miss a couple of classes, even though the last lab that didn't really happen, or very minimally as mentioned. If you do need to miss one, which may happen anyway because you've got, I don't know, something else going on, right? Then of course all of the classes are recorded. So you get sent, we have a playlist of all the classes which you can refer to, on an ongoing basis beyond the course as well. But you can always look at it that way or review it that way, and similarly you're sent PDF materials that you'll get. So it's really not the end of the world if you do need to miss a couple. Yeah. Okay.